All right, here we go. It is podcasting time. I'm James Piecowye. He is Glenn Power, and this is an hour of talking cars. If you're joining us on 100.3, the home of sport, conversation, and of course, news, it's great to have you with us. You're in your car. You got us for the next hour. If you're joining us via a short, a reel, YouTube, Spotify, we are across the internet on whatever platform you're here with us. Like us, share us, let us know what's going on. And you know what? Fire in your questions, by the way, across all platforms, and we'll get to them. We'll help you solve your car woes and hopefully save some money along the way. I think that's the key. That's what we do here. Glenn, it's good to be back.
Yeah, talk about platforms. I always used Google Podcasts for everything.
Really?
Right. So all my Jamescast content was consumed through Google Podcasts. And Joe Rogan was obviously Spotify only. That was kind of where I went to Spotify for. But now Google Podcasts has gone and you have to listen on YouTube Music. And if I open a podcast up now and press play on it, it'll take about 6 minutes to load it. Yeah. Buffer it, and then it'll eventually play. In Google Podcasts, you just click on it, bang.
It used to be great. I used to love Google Podcast.
YouTube Music, and now it's
it's forcing you to head over to Spotify.
So slow. Well, that's what I'm saying. I just go to Spotify now.
Yeah,
and you get video on Spotify as well.
Yeah,
I know you can get it obviously on YouTube. But
so I wonder. You're listening to the podcast. I wonder if now the issue becomes forget about listening to the podcast. Listen to it, but just go to YouTube directly. Go to the Jamescast in YouTube. Don't go to the podcast version and grab it that way.
Yeah.
I think you might. And then you'll get all the shorts as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place that those are posted. Whereas through Spotify and that's a great one for folks if you're looking for just a quick hit. The Jamescasts with an S is where we find all of these podcasts. If you're listening via a podcast network, something that's giving you the podcast, you're getting the full show. But if you go to YouTube, the Jamescast, not only do you get the full show, but you get 30 seconds to 60-second bits that might be just what you need to get you through that waiting room, or you're having an argument with your spouse. Just put one of those on. Just wait till the climax of that argument, and away you go. So we got you covered in a lot of different ways.
As many ways as we can.
Yeah. Had the opportunity to drive a Wrangler 4xe hybrid 2-liter turbo.
Petrol.
It was petrol. Petrol, a 50-kilometer charge that doesn't charge from the engine. So you have to plug it in, and then you get about 50K. Doesn't recharge from the engine, which I thought was weird.
What's the point?
I guess if you're just going around town, it's going to give you a little extra.
You don't need a Wrangler if you're just going around town, oh dear. Kind of defeats the object.
There were little things with this Wrangler that just made me go, You lose a little bit of storage space under the back seats because the batteries are all there.
Yeah.
This particular Wrangler was a city car. This was made for the city. This particular Wrangler had a rollback roof, one of these electric motors and all I kept thinking as I was rolling back this roof was what happens when this motor goes.
Yeah, don't brake.
That's all I was thinking. Don't brake. And owning a Wrangler in a hot climate, all I was doing was looking at all the seals, going at if one of these seals gives out and you got to replace it, or the motor gives out, and already there was the switch that made it work. I just didn't get the switch. I didn't understand the switch. It was an old school switch that I just couldn't quite figure out the automatic.
Yeah, for me, that electric roof on a Wrangler takes away from the utilitarian nature of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, I don't know. It'd be like making a Porsche 911 front engine. Like it's not what it should be, is it? Like Wranglers should have a big Allen key that you can turn
exactly
to take the roof off, and you have to manhandle it off and then put it in the garage, and it works.
Yeah,
it will never not work.
No, you put on your soft top, you have your pull off the front little two pieces, you kind of got your old.
And I've never understood a hybrid that won't charge from the engine. I don't get.
Well, I kept looking for it. I thought, okay, there's got to be a.
What benefit is there? Well, who benefits from that? You've still got all the nastiness of making an electric vehicle for the electric side, and then you've done nothing about the. I don't know.
Yeah,
crazy.
I honestly, the reason that Jeep exists is to get the green credits.
Yeah.
When you're buying it.
Yeah.
Because it had a green license plate, so it hit all of the environmental boxes, minimal, and away you go. So I just went, huh. The funny thing as I'm driving this, so this is 2002 year model. I drive 2008. Like, this is 3 generations. Drives exactly like a 2008 Jeep Wrangler. I'm driving it going, it's newer. It hasn't been driven over speed bumps like craziness. So it's got everything's a little tighter.
Yeah.
But for the most part, got on the highway, drove exactly this. It felt like my 2008.
Which you have to applaud that.
Yeah.
They've stuck with it. It works. The Wrangler does work. It's like a Defender or, a Golf. They're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
Because they work. They did it right. 911 we just mentioned, they're the same. They all feel pretty similar because they work. But then they do silly things like put a 2, and nobody would want a 2-litre petrol Wrangler anyway.
No.
And then add the weight of a battery and electric motor to it. What's that all about?
You know what I always missed was the sound of the engine, because you've got the 3.8 V8 or V6. Sorry,
yeah.
I missed the sound. It just didn't sound right. It was weird.
Yeah, I always like the old inline.
Oh man,
6 4-litre ones. We get a couple of those coming still.
That's a sweet engine.
One was a real electrical nightmare last time it was in, but that I always liked those. They're just smooth and just seem to be bulletproof.
Yeah, easy to fix.
I don't see how, because modern cars are heavy, seats and airbags and I'm fully aware, obviously from working at VW and seeing the cars that we see, that 2-litre turbo is perfectly capable of doing 250 horsepower without any second thought these days. But it doesn't fill you with confidence on a Wrangler, like I say, and then you add all the electric gubbins to it for the EV side of it, and it's not even high. It doesn't. I don't know. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure. I mean, when did the engine? What speeds were you doing for the engine to kick in, or does it just wait till you've drained the 50k?
You had a couple settings, but for the most part, it waited for you to drain the 50k. So it was. I mean, it cruised nicely. It was nice in the electric mode, and then after about 50k, boom, you're in petrol, and that's when you just know. And it would get down to a minimum charge, and then it would use you. It would start with the electric, and then your petrol engine would kick in. But it just needs a bigger engine.
Yeah, I mean, so talking about the
looks
EV
nice
things,
though. Looks really nice, but
yeah, Amy's just bought a Wrangler. It's a 2019 one, and it's clean and it's new. It's
4-door,
nice. No, just a small one.
Okay.
And it's like, she loves it.
Yeah.
And it was, she upset me because it was either that or a Golf R, and she went for that. Unbelievable.
She made
sacrilegious.
a good choice.
But
applause from here, another Wrangler owner.
When you sent me the video of the RS next to the Wrangler the other day, I was like, that's pretty much what I've just been through.
You need them both.
Yeah, well, but no, I was going to send you this. So there's probably the most famous manufacturer of electric vehicles. There's an owners club here on Facebook in the UAE, and I'm part of it because we do a lot of repairs on them. And people sometimes ask for advice and stuff. And this post, I'll read it verbatim. It doesn't give anything away. And it just made me sort of think, yeah, this is the way the world is going to go, unfortunately. So, hi, everyone. Those who are living in JVC and do not have a charger at home, where do you all go to charge your Teslas? I've been taking my car to the superchargers every now and then for months, as I cannot even charge my car at work. And honestly, it is getting exhausting, as I always have to plan my journey ahead and sometimes have to cancel because I'm running low on charge. Any tips or ideas will be highly appreciated. Also, should I consider selling and going for a petrol car?
There we go.
And I think that's... So JVC there, anyone that doesn't live here, JVC is an established area. And it's being developed all the time. It clearly is a statement there that says that there's no charging network in that area, and Well, what do you say if a place like here, if a place like Dubai, the UAE, hasn't got the infrastructure for electric vehicles, then I don't know how the rest of the world is going to be doing with that.
You have a supercharger here in the garage. Are they expensive?
So the problem with getting one at home, because we're obviously a country of immigrants, aren't we? And the transient nature of that means that the majority of people rent. Even with the skyrocketing rents, it's still, pretty much the same or cheaper to rent than it is to buy. And, who wants to sit and also you can only have a mortgage till you're 60, etc., etc. So by the time nowadays you get old enough to a point where you might be able to get approved for a mortgage, you probably can't afford it anyway. So most people rent. So then you've got to get permission from DWER, the electric utility company. You've got to then get permission from the landlord. The landlord's probably got to get permission from the developer, because most of the time it's not a house on a piece of land, it's a house as a part of a community. Got to get all these permissions, then you've got to get it installed. I just think it's not worth it for a lot of people. And it's becoming more and more apparent that the network's not there, and the existing network's breaking down quicker than they can expand on it. So the coverage isn't growing, because as you add 10 chargers to the network, you've probably find that you've got 10 to 15 that are damaged in the existing network. So you're just treading water. And everywhere you go, there's a couple of petrol stations now that have got the charging points, and they're just full of taxis.
I was just gonna say, they're right by us. There's an Emirat. It's got a Burger King. It's got a KFC. It's got 2 fast chargers. Always 3 taxis sitting there any hour of the day.
Yeah, the big DWER Customer Happiness Centre down the road from us here, fantastic building, and they've got EV chargers there. And I remember them being sort of there in Mall of the Emirates. I remember being sort of one of the first, last maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, and they were free.
Right,
and they've got them right outside the entrance. And
beautiful days. Those are happy days.
Always full. It's like we're open here on a Sunday, but nowhere else around us is. So I'm going out on a road test on Sunday, and I go down past there, and there's a queue of taxis at the gate to get into the back of a building that's closed, and it's because they want to use the chargers. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And I was listening to, I think it was the General Motors CEO, the lady, I forget her name, Mary Barra or something like that.
Definitely, I think it's Mary something.
She was saying they're moving away from EV. They're just moving away from it. And when you've got militaries, you've got navies around the world that use hydrogen ships now, and hydrogen, it just makes no sense to keep putting it off. I don't understand. It must be a lobbying thing. It must be
clearly.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Look, if Airbus can make one aircraft, one airline can make one aircraft, and I've said this before, and airports can completely reconfigure to accommodate that aircraft, which now is no longer made, and essentially airlines have offloaded them. There's almost only one airline now, Emirates, that flies them, and you've got airports around the world that have reconfigured, and they're going to be gone. Automakers can build electric vehicles and then just change mind anytime they want to. I mean, it was a nice fad. It worked really well. They got some great science and technology R&D out of it, and they'll eventually move on once they've realized the cost benefit.
I understand that obviously when it comes to hydrogen, you've got to generate the hydrogen, and usually that's done by splitting water, basically, which requires energy. Obviously it does, but I don't see that it requires anything like the demand on energy in the planet that mining for lithium and cobalt does.
It's totally
take
different.
The ethics out of it. Whatever happens, but it just doesn't make any sense to me to think that would be the way to keep going. And you've got situations like this as people in Dubai that can't charge their electric vehicles. You've got, where do you go with it? And what benefit on a I mean, let's take your example. You've just had a hybrid that was a plug-in.
Yeah.
So it was a plug-in hybrid.
So if you had the supercharger, which we didn't, it was about a 2-hour charge up, 2.5 hours.
50 kilometers out of that.
Yeah. And then if you didn't have the charger, which of course we didn't, then I had just plug it into the wall. Took 15 hours.
Yeah.
So I'd plug it in at night.
Plug it in at night and go in
do it. Look, I saved some fuel. I was happy I didn't have to put petrol in it.
But my thing with that is, let's take me and my family as an example, right? So we're going to go home in the summer to the UK to get out of the heat here, right? So we've got to rent a car, and let's say they give us an EV or a plug-in. We're not staying. We haven't got our own house.
Yeah,
we don't have our own house, so we're going to then stop. We're staying with in-laws at this point, but let's say we're going to take an Airbnb. That person who's renting us that Airbnb, we've got a car plugged in for 15 hours every night. That's like an increase on the bill. So then the person that follows us that goes and stays in that Airbnb finds that the rates have gone up because it's like, well, because electric's not cheap in the UK. Electricity is not a cheap utility.
Nor North America. And I felt actually bad. I was at my in-laws' place.
Yeah.
I'm plugging in. They weren't home yet. I'm plugging in, and I'm kind of feeling, they had the Tesla too. So they get their Tesla plugged in, and then I'm just plugging into the wall. And I have no idea what the energy consumption is. And I'm just thinking, man, for 10 days, their electric bill is going to be peaking.
Take it like in the summer when people have got ACs running and, crazy. And I don't think the network could deal with the demand anyway, should it happen. And I think that's what will, the fact that all the roads in Dubai aren't dug up and they're not putting copper cables down and they're not putting more substations in tells me there's no real appetite for it. And, to read that, when I read that about there's nowhere to charge my car and I have to cancel scheduled appointments.
That's shocking to me, actually.
I thought to myself, they're asking. It's sort of, you can see it, you can feel it in the way they've written that post. They've gone for the EV over some kind of trying to almost virtue signaling, to be fair, but trying to do the right thing, trying to be conscious of the environment because they've read that it's a good thing to do and they've believed, because that's something that it's a bit of confirmation bias. You can afford to buy an EV, then you think, well, okay, that's good for the environment. I think the fact that they've got to ask the question, should I go back to internal combustion, is because they don't want to be seen as a bad person for doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, it doesn't take much investigation or reading or listening or watching to find out actually ain't that clean of an industry, and it's not, the most amazing use of resources that we could partake in. So, you've got people like Elon Musk talking about building robots, and that's going to be the future of Tesla. He knows, he can see that. And he also understands that for electric vehicles to be fully efficient, you've got to dig special tunnels under the roads for them so that they don't have to stop-start, and there's always going to be a charger at either end. So I think Elon Musk needs to switch his mind to figuring out the hydrogen production, and nothing much needs to change on that. You can use the existing infrastructure for petrol and diesel filling stations. You can just add a hydrogen pump there, and I think that's the way to do it. And I think if we can move past the conversation of it's best for the environment to go for an EV than an internal combustion. I mean, you look at some of the pollution and carbon data for the newer engines. They're so clean. Some of them are blowing out air that's cleaner than they breathe in.
Yeah.
So I think, a bit of carbon, which you can quite easily offset, actually.
I wonder, and I wonder if Dubai is a great testing ground. Is when we look at our electric cars, and I'd love for people to chime in, get in touch with us about this. The James casts across all your different modes of communication. Check us out there. Leave comments, please. I'm James Piecowye, Glen Power, joining me, by the way, here. It's the PowerWorks podcast. We have so many electric cars, and an increasing number, because unlike other parts of the world, we've embraced the Chinese electric cars, which are fairly economical. North America, Europe are putting up major roadblocks to the Chinese vehicles because of ideological political issues. So in the UAE, I'm wondering, no science here, I'd love to get the answer, is we get a lot of people doing the commutes. You've just read a nice piece about someone who has charging anxiety and is experiencing problems with charging. We've got people who are doing these great commutes from Ajman to Abu Dhabi and beyond every day. They're in traffic. I see the traffic every day. I don't sit and count the EVs in that traffic. But can you imagine someone who's in that traffic in an electric car? It's hot, so the air conditioning's on. The air conditioning is not only cooling the cabin, it's cooling the batteries, and you're watching your charge go down. And you need to make it the last 10 kilometers. And this would be a daily deal, because we all know extreme cold and extreme heat are not good for our current batteries. So I'm wondering how people are coping with that, because there's more and more, as I said, not just the Teslas, but right across the board, EVs here. And this becomes quite the testing ground for how to deal with that and what people do to help offset that anxiety. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I think, I sort of lived that for a little while with the ID6, and it wasn't somewhere I'm going to put myself back into again. And, people always mention that batteries are going to improve and are improving and have improved. And of course they have. I get it, right? But that doesn't really solve the problem. The problem for the problem for me is the environmental side of, apart from the fact that it's trendy to have an electric car.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Very true. I mean, I think that's the number one reason you buy an electric car. Yeah. It's the trendiness.
The fact is it became trendy because of people going after so like I say, it's virtue signaling. Yeah. I care about it. I'm conscious of the environment, and I can appreciate somebody looking at a certain type of car and saying that's a nice looking car. A lot of these Chinese electric cars are pretty okay to look at, so I get it. But I just think for the same or probably less money, you could go and get yourself a car that's less trouble and has definitely less long-term impact on the environment.
Well, I posted a car in our notes, the Zeekr X, ZEEKR-X. And this is a Geely global design. Comes out of Stockholm, is where it was designed, using the scalable experience architecture founded in the Volvo EX30. So Stockholm, Volvo, Geely, electric car. And you see the picture of it. It's I'm reading through this thing, and the what really caught my attention was what 3/4 of the way down, the vegan interior.
My interior in my van don't eat meat either. Don't eat anything.
Same with the Wrangler.
Yeah.
There's
ridiculous.
What is a vegan interior?
Ridiculous, that. Ridiculous. And also, does that mean none of that's plastic? Because do people understand plastics from crude oil, which is from dead animals?
I don't know.
Where do you draw the line on the vegan side of it?
Look, just a side note on veganism. I have no issues with veganism, but I have issues with ultra processed food.
Yeah.
And there is some wonderful reading about processed, ultra processed foods, non-processed foods, and there's one wonderful researcher who's very, and it's just the way he does his research, but for him, processed food is anything that isn't coming direct. So if you go buy carrots that are cut, it's been processed. If you go buy, cheese is a processed food in his book. Unless it's at its raw element and you're doing all the work with it, then it's processed.
Yeah.
Ultra processed is when I see a lot of these vegan foods, and I have nothing against veganism or vegetarianism. But what just makes me chuckle is that you've got all these folks who are eating vegan food that has gone through this ultra processing system to make it look like something else or taste like something else or be something else, and you're not even sure what half the stuff in it is anymore. So it's strange.
A lot of the plant-based stuff is a problem for the soil when it's farmed and how it's farmed, and it's
I could be totally off base there, by the way, and someone's going to come back at me.
Single ingredient. Well, that's fine. Any interaction's good, but single ingredient foods are, what you want, and it just goes. I mean, you want a vegan car interior. I mean, look, I get it, but means. Like, what does it mean? It's not leather. Well, my van's not got leather in it either.
You put that word in there, and I honestly,
but it goes to show.
Trying to attract an audience.
It goes to show they're aiming it at, and it's the whole. And that's it. A lot of people that are vegan, it's the same as the people that have an electric vehicle. They've gone for the vegan diet because they can say, "Well, I'm not contributing to cow farts that are causing global warming." Well, I'm sorry, but done right and done properly, a cow can feed a family of 4 for a year.
Yeah.
If you process it, butcher it properly.
Yeah.
Like, you need a whole field of lentils.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I've got a vegan brother and I've got a brother that's vegetarian, and I know for a fact it's a good job that my mum's dad, my granddad's not around, because he wouldn't have had it. He wouldn't have been for that. I mean, if it didn't have meat on a plate, it weren't a meal.
Look, my son is a true carnivore, and his girlfriend's a vegan. And he's switched in a little bit into more of that vegan lifestyle, but he has not abandoned his carnivore tastes. But he said, you need that protein.
Yeah.
And for just health reasons, he found when he was really swung over towards the vegans, he just wasn't feeling well.
Yeah. I mean,